While Apple's App Store is heavily regulated, the Google Play Store has mostly lived its life under Google's laissez-faire attitude. As long as you didn't get caught by Google's malware scanning, your app was free to do just about anything. But lately, Google's hands-off approach seems to be changing. The company tried to restrict Android's powerful accessibility apps only to accessibility apps, but after the power user revolt, Google is currently rethinking that plan. The Play Store's biggest change is coming in 2018, though. Recently Google announced it will start setting a minimum API level that new and updated apps will be required to use. This is a technical change but a massive one. Basically, Google will stop accepting old app code from developers. The move won't harm support for devices running old versions of Android, but it will require developers to adopt new Android features and restrictions as they come out. Every new version of Android comes with a new API level, which changes how the app framework functions, adding new features, new restrictions, and new security measures. Currently, developers can opt out of these changes by just using an old API level, but soon they will be forced to target recent API levels. This will accelerate Google's Android changes throughout the app ecosystem, rather than having to wait years and years for it to happen naturally through Android's incredibly ineffective OS update program. All Android apps must set two API levels internally. First is the minimum API level, which determines the oldest Android version the app will run on, and then there's the target API level, which is the highest version of Android that the app is aware of. Every new version of Android bumps the API level up one version, and currently Android 8.1 is on API level 27. When Google changes the way the Android app framework works, it doesn't want to break old apps, so it locks this functionality behind a new target API level. For instance, in API level 26 Android 8.0 Google changed the way background tasks worked by turning off many power-hogging background processing features for apps and requiring them to use a more restrictive API. In API level 23 Android 6.0 Google added Lockhart permissions, allowing users to block apps from accessing certain device functions. These changes are good for users but more restrictive for app developers, and they require work to implement. If a developer wanted to be a greedy device hog, they could just decide to not target the latest API level, and these restrictions would not apply to them. The ability to use an older API level is meant to be a backward compatibility consideration, but developers can abuse the feature if they are greedy, lazy, or malicious. Previously, Google used a carrot approach to getting developers to target the latest API levels. If you want access to that sweet new fingerprint API in Android 6.0 or the Vulkan Graphics API, you'll need to target the latest version. Newer versions also come with a host of requirements and restrictions to make your app the better smartphone citizen, though. New API levels haven't had much in the way of enticing developer features, though they've mostly been things that are good for users, like less background processing, stricter permissions, controllable notifications, and design conformity features like adaptive icons. These are work for developers to implement, and while they benefit the user, they don't help developers. The carrot approach looks like it's going away and being replaced with the stick. Google says update to a newer API or never update your app again.